Blue and red lights fractured the rain-slick street into chaos. Malik's hands trembled against the hood of the patrol car, the cold metal biting through his thin hoodie. His backpack, still unzipped from the subway ride, lay spilled beside the gutter, chess pieces rolling into the drain like lost chances. "Keep your hands where I can see them," Officer Daniels barked, voice sharp enough to slice through the hiss of rain. His hand never left his gun. Malik's throat tightened. He tried to speak, to explain, but his voice cracked. "Sir, I just came from don't talk." Daniels cut him off, his tone low and venomous. "Funny how you people always have a story." The phrase hit harder than the shove that followed. Malik stumbled, cheek scraping the wet metal. Somewhere down the block, a window closed. No one wanted to see. The rain slowed, but the silence that followed was louder than sirens. Malik looked up, face pressed against the police logo, and caught his own reflection in the chrome. A terrified black teen, eyes wide, chest heaving, king trapped on the wrong side of the board. Then, the officer unzipped the backpack. Inside, a sleek wooden chessboard, medals, a passport stamped with foreign cities. Daniels froze. His jaw tightened. "What the hell is this?" Malik didn't answer. His lip trembled, blood mixing with rain. From the open radio came a dispatcher's voice. "Be advised, media en route. The suspect matches the description of International Grandmaster Malik Adebayo, 17 years old." Daniel's eyes flicked from the board to the boy. For the first time, hesitation cracked his mask. The handcuffs clicked anyway. The sound echoed, metallic, final, as cameras flashed in the distance. Cut to black. Rain fell in needles, slicing through the glow of the city's night pulse. Malik adjusted his backpack, careful not to slip on the slick pavement. The sound of sirens was distant, Chicago background noise, until it wasn't. A cruiser screeched beside him. "Hey, you stop right there." The command froze him. His heartbeat quickened, eyes wide, palms open. "Me." Officer Daniels stepped out, broad-shouldered, pale eyes scanning him like an algorithm programmed for suspicion. Description fits. Hooded male, dark clothing, running from a scene near Wabash. I just got off the subway," Malik said. "I was hands where I can see them." The world contracted, the wet hiss of tires, neon signs flickering over puddles, the metallic smell of rain and fear. Malik obeyed, lifting his hands slowly. Daniels moved closer. "Empty your pockets." "I'm not, do it." Malik reached into his hoodie, trembling. A bus slowed nearby, passengers' faces pressed to the glass. None of them moved. Daniels grabbed Malik's arm, spun him against the hood, and frisked him hard enough to knock the breath from his lungs. "Got it in my bag." Daniels yanked it open. Out spilled notebooks, a travel passport, a small mahogany box, its lid half cracked, revealing pieces of carved ivory. "What's this?" "Chess set," Malik muttered. Daniels chuckled. "Sure it is. You selling drugs in those fancy boxes now?" Malik turned his head. Rain and tears, indistinguishable. "Sir, please, I just came from practice." The officer ignored him, voice rising. "Where'd you get all this money?" "It's prize money." Daniels shoved the passport toward him. "Fake no." Malik's voice quivered. "It's mine. I'm Malik Adebayo." The name meant nothing to the man cuffing him. A crowd gathered now, umbrellas, phones raised, murmurs building. A woman whispered, "He's just a kid." Daniels snapped, "Back up." Malik felt the cuffs tighten until metal bit bone. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Big talk for a suspect," Daniels replied, guiding him toward the squad car. "You can explain yourself downtown." From the back seat, Malik watched his backpack left on the curb. Water pooling around the fallen chessboard. The carved king floated, toppled, down the gutter. Inside the car, he inhaled shallowly, trying to think. Moves and countermoves. Escape wasn't an option. Only endurance. At the precinct, fluorescent light replaced rain. Daniels filled out paperwork with mechanical detachment. Male, black, 17, possible theft involvement. Malik sat still. "You didn't read me my rights." Daniel's pen paused mid-stroke. "You want to make this harder." Silence, stretched. A second officer entered, glanced at Malik, then away. "He's just a kid." Rick Daniels didn't respond. The sound of the clock ticking echoed. Malik's jaw tightened. Humiliation turned to calculation. If this was a chessboard, he'd already lost tempo. But there were still pieces in play. Hours later, as they led him to a holding cell, he heard laughter from the duty desk. "Guess our suspects got expensive taste in board games." Malik sat on the cold bench, mind spinning through the fog of fear. Each move of his life, school, competition, flight, had been precise. Now chaos had replaced logic. He closed his eyes and imagined a chessboard, 64 squares of certainty, order, pattern, reason. Rain hammered the small barred window above him. He didn't notice the glow of a phone screen beyond the glass. A bystander's video already gathering views. By morning, the world would know his name. The holding cell smelled of bleach and exhaustion. Fluorescent lights hummed like insects trapped behind glass. Malik sat motionless on the metal bench, eyes on the wall clock that seemed to slow out of spite. He'd stopped shivering. Now, he was just cold. The door buzzed open. Officer Daniels entered with another officer, Detective Rousseau, older, composed, a man whose silence filled more space than words ever could. "Let's talk," Rousseau said flatly. Malik stood, wrists still cuffed. Daniels gestured to a chair in the interrogation room, a square box of white walls and flickering light. Malik sat, spine straight, breathing shallow. Daniels began without preamble. "You were near a reported break. You matched the description. You resisted when told to stop." "I didn't resist," Malik replied. "I asked what was happening." "That's resisting, son." Daniels' tone was acid slick, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. Rousseau scribbled notes. "What were you doing downtown?" "I was at the metro station, coming from training." "What kind of training?" "Chess." Daniels barked out a dry laugh. "Chess? That's a new one." Malik didn't flinch. "I play internationally." Rousseau looked up. "Internationally? I'm representing the U.S. in the Intercontinental Open next week." Daniels scoffed. "You hear that, Frank? We got ourselves a prodigy." Malik's gaze hardened. "You took my passport. My ID, my credentials, are in the bag." Rousseau leaned back. "We'll verify that. Till then, you're just another kid who thinks he's special." Malik swallowed the surge of anger clawing up his chest. "Control the board, not the player." His father's voice, years ago. Daniels tossed the paper across the table. "Sign the statement saying you understand your rights." "I'd like a lawyer first." Daniels' smirk vanished. "You don't need one if you've got nothing to hide." Rousseau's tone softened, but his words carried the same edge. "Son, cooperation goes a long way." "I want a lawyer," Malik repeated. The silence stretched. Daniel's jaw flexed. "Fine, sit tight. We'll make the call when we have time." The door slammed. Alone again. Malik leaned forward, head in his hands. His wrists ached where the cuffs had cut the skin. The chessboard of his life was shifting beneath him, one bad move forced by another. He glanced at the mirrored wall. He could feel eyes behind it, watching, judging. Minutes blurred into hours. The hum of vending machines in the hallway, the click of boots, the low static of a police radio all became background noise in an endless middle game. Finally, the door creaked open. A uniformed officer entered, not Daniels. Her badge, read Mendoza. "You need anything?" she asked, voice neutral but not unkind. Malik hesitated. "Can I make a call?" She studied him, then nodded. "One call. Make it count." He dialed home with trembling fingers. 2 rings. Then Malik, his mother's voice, breathless, scared. "Mom, his throat broke." "What happened?" "They said you've been arrested. It's a mistake. Please call the Federation. Mr. Klein, he can verify everything. I'm coming down there right now." The line went dead. Mendoza took the phone back, quietly. "Hang tight. Things move slow around here." When she left, Daniels walked past the glass again, voice low but audible through the crack in the door. "Kid thinks he's some kind of genius, won't be so smart when he sees how the system works." Rousseau didn't answer. By midnight, Malik was processed. Fingerprints, mugshot, property logged. The chessboard was sealed in a plastic evidence bag, labeled MISC. Item, unknown value. "Where's my bag going?" he asked. "Evidence," Daniels replied. "You'll get it when we're done. When you're done proving I'm guilty of nothing." Daniels stopped. For the first time, his smile was gone. "You talk like someone who's never been scared enough." Malik's reply was almost a whisper. "I am scared. I'm just not quiet." Daniels stared at him, the kind of stare that wanted to erase defiance, then turned away. At 2 a.m., Malik lay on the narrow cot of the cell, the world shrinking to the sound of his own breath. Across town, a teenager's arrest video was already trending, shaky footage of a boy in cuffs, chessboard spilling into the rain. The caption read, "Chicago cops arrest teen chess champion, mistake or profiling." Malik didn't know yet, but the next move wasn't his anymore. By morning, Malik's face was everywhere. The video, 47 seconds long, had already crossed 1 million views. Rain, Sirens, the cuffs clicking shut, a boy's voice trembling. You're making a mistake. It looped endlessly, dissected by morning anchors with furrowed brows and forced neutrality. Inside the precinct, the mood was brittle. Daniels walked through the hall as if it were normal, but every conversation seemed to stop when he passed. Russo avoided his eyes. A TV above the coffee station showed Moloch's photo beside the headline. Arrested teen identified as international chess prodigy Moloch Adebayo. Daniels froze. For the first time, the words landed like a blow. Rick, Russo muttered. Chief wants you in the office. Now. Daniels' lips tightened. Let me guess. Optics. Russo didn't answer. In the holding area, Malik sat across from a weary public defender named Grant. Silver hair, dark suit. .com voice. Malik, I've seen the footage. You're trending in 7 countries. Malik blinked, barely processing. Trending, for being arrested. Grant exhaled. For being humiliated. The internet's furious. Your federations confirmed your identity. They're already demanding your release. Malik's relief was thin. They shouldn't have to demand anything. Grant nodded slowly. I agree. But understand, the system doesn't like to admit mistakes. They'll stall, deny, and shift blame before they apologize. From outside the glass, Daniels watched. His jaw ticked when he saw Malik's calm posture, the lawyer's presence. Grant leaned closer. Whatever you do, stay measured. They're going to look for arrogance, for aggression, for anything to twist. Don't give them that. Malik's voice was quiet. I wasn't angry. I was scared. I know, Grant said, and that's why they're losing control of the story. In the chief's office, tension curdled the air. Chief Harper stood beside the TV. Daniels entered stiffly, rain-dark stains still on his jacket. What in God's name were you thinking? Harper snapped. That boy's an international figure. You detained a minor, without Miranda, without probable cause, and with cameras rolling. Daniels straightened. He matched the description. He matched your assumptions. Harper cut in. Do you have any idea the kind of blowback we're facing? Civil rights groups, international press. Daniels clenched his fists. He resisted. The chief slammed his hand on the desk. I watched the footage. He didn't move an inch. Silence. The hum of the air vent filled the room. Harper's voice lowered. Internal Affairs will open a review. For now, keep your head down. No statements. No contact with the press. Daniels hesitated. So I'm just supposed to let them destroy me online? You did that yourself. The words landed sharp. Daniels turned, jaw locked, eyes flaring with something darker than guilt, wounded pride. That afternoon, Moloch's mother arrived, tall, composed, her voice a quiet storm. She wore her work badge from the hospital, still clipped to her coat. She pushed past the desk sergeant. Where is my son? Daniels was there, leaning against the counter. Their eyes met. You, she said, her tone low but cutting. You're the one who put your hands on him. Daniels opened his mouth, but no words came. Grant stepped in. Mrs. Adebayo, we're securing his release. Paperwork's almost done. She turned to her son through the glass of the processing room. Malik rose from the bench, face pale but composed. When he was finally released, she pulled him into her arms, holding him tighter than words allowed. Are you hurt? No, Mama. Her hand brushed the marks on his wrist. Her expression hardened. You will be fine, but they will not. Grant guided them outside, where camera flashes cut through the gray daylight. Reporters shouted questions. Malik kept his head down, his mother's hand gripping his shoulder like armor. How does it feel to be free? Do you plan to sue the department? Is it true you were profiled? Malik didn't speak. The silence itself was an accusation. That evening, on the nightly news, the footage replayed yet again, now framed with commentary. A gifted teen, a routine stop turned racial controversy. The city divided. At home, people argued in living rooms, online threads, and office break rooms. To some, it was a tragic mistake. To others, it was proof, not of error, but of design. In the precinct locker room, Daniels sat alone, the sound of the TV filtering from the hallway. Sources confirm Officer Richard Daniels has been placed on temporary suspension pending investigation. He stared at his reflection, his face drawn, eyes red. He reached for his badge, thumb brushing over the metal, then set it down on the bench. Outside the window, protesters were gathering hand-painted signs glowing under streetlights. Checkmate racism. Justice for Malik. Daniels looked down at his hands. They were shaking. Across town, Malik sat in his room, phone dark on the nightstand. His chessboard was back in front of him, pieces neatly arranged. He moved the first pawn forward. Slow, deliberate. His mother watched from the doorway. You should rest. I can't, he said softly. The game's still going. Which one? He didn't answer. He stared at the board, the white king glinting under the lamplight, the black pieces lined like obstacles. Somewhere downtown, sirens wailed again. This time, they sounded different. The precinct's conference room, the chamber, as officers cynically called it, was built for intimidation. Gray walls, no windows, one long table under the weight of fluorescent light. Daniel sat alone at the far end, tie loosened, eyes rimmed with fatigue. A voice recorder blinked red. Across from him, Internal Affairs Investigator Quinn shuffled files, his expression unreadable. Officer Daniels, Quinn began, we're reviewing the incident involving Malik Adebayo. I'll be asking questions regarding your conduct, procedures, and discretionary judgment. For the record, you've agreed to proceed without counsel. Daniels nodded stiffly. Understood. Quinn clicked his pen. Let's start simple. Why did you stop the suspect? He matched the description of a reported burglary suspect. Black male, mid-teens, dark hoodie. Anything else? He was running. Quinn raised an eyebrow. The footage shows him walking. Daniel's jaw tightened. I saw movement. My instinct kicked in. Instinct, Quinn repeated. You're aware that the only crime he committed that night was existing in your line of sight. Daniel's lips pressed into a line. I acted according to procedure. Procedure, Quinn said quietly, doesn't include drawing a weapon on an unarmed minor. Daniels exhaled through his nose, hard. You weren't there. The city's been on edge. Burglaries, assaults, officers being ambushed. You hesitate. You die. Quinn leaned forward. So you treated him like a threat because of fear. Daniels hesitated. Because of probability. Quinn wrote something down. Voice calm. Probability or prejudice. Daniels didn't answer. The tape whirred softly. Meanwhile, Malik sat in a private waiting room at his lawyer's office, head bent over a cup of untouched tea. Across from him, his coach, Mr. Klein, paced restlessly. You know the Federation's furious, Klein said. Sponsors are calling. Press is circling. Everyone wants a statement. Malik rubbed his temples. I don't want to be their headline. Then what do you want? Not to be treated like I don't belong in my own city. Klein's pacing slowed. You'll need to decide soon. The silence helps your dignity, but people want to hear from you. They need to see you're more than a victim. Malik looked up, eyes tired but steady. I'm not a victim. I'm proof. Klein nodded, something proud flickering behind his concern. Back in the chamber, Quinn pressed further. Did you hear the dispatcher identified the suspect as Malik Adebayo before the cuffs went on? Daniels swallowed. Yes, and you still detained him. I didn't believe it. Kids lie. People lie. Evidence doesn't, Quinn said, his tone flat. Passport, credentials, medals, you logged them as unverified. That's deliberate negligence. Daniel's voice cracked, just slightly. I was following instinct. Quinn leaned back. Instinct seems to have a color, Officer Daniels. The silence between them was thick, heavy with the weight of years unspoken. The kind of bias that isn't taught but inherited. Daniel's mind flashed his father, a retired cop, slamming a newspaper on the kitchen table years ago. This city's going soft. You see a threat, you act first. He'd been 12. He'd believed it. Now that same echo filled his chest, hollow. Quinn closed the file. The department will proceed with disciplinary review. You're on administrative leave pending full investigation. Turn in your firearm and badge. Daniels stared at the table. That's it. That's accountability, Quinn replied. Be grateful. It's not indictment yet. That night, Daniels drove home in silence. The city outside blurred protest signs glowing under street lamps. Checkmate racism painted across a billboard dot at a red light. His radio buzzed with a familiar voice, Harpa, curt and distant. Daniels, you're off duty until further notice. Don't speak to the press. Don't appear in public. Let this cool down. He didn't reply. At home, he sat in darkness, TV off, the sound of rain hitting the window. He opened his desk drawer. Medals, service plaques, an old family photo. In the picture, his father stood behind him in uniform, hand on his shoulder, both smiling stiffly. Now the image looked foreign. He whispered to the empty room. Where did I learn to see enemies? The answer was nowhere and everywhere. Across the city, Malik couldn't sleep. He replayed the scene in fragments, the cold metal, the words, the helplessness. Each memory felt like a scar stitching into place. His mother entered quietly, sitting beside him on the bed. You did nothing wrong, she said softly. I know, he whispered, but it still feels like I lost. She brushed his hair from his forehead. Loss isn't defeat, Malik. It's what you do after that matters. Outside, thunder rumbled over Chicago, a city trying to pretend it wasn't breaking. Both men, in different corners of the same night, sat staring at reflections they no longer recognized. The board was reset, but the game had changed. The interrogation room had been replaced by quiet, a new kind of battlefield. Malik sat across from his lawyer, Grant, in a small meeting chamber at the Civil Rights Office downtown. His wrists still bore faint red lines, a memory stamped into skin. A stack of papers lay between them, reports, evidence logs, photos of the spilled chessboard, still frames from the viral video. Grant leaned forward. They've started spinning the story. Malik blinked. Spinning, Daniel's union claims you resisted. They're pushing body cam footage, edited, of course. 30 seconds of you moving your hands, cut before he grabbed you. Malik stared down at the chessboard image. That's how they play. Control the story. Grant nodded. Yes, but remember, we're playing too. Public opinion's already turned. The truth is on our side, but we have to move strategically. Malik looked up, eyes sharp. Like chess. Exactly, Grant said. Only difference is, they'll cheat. Across town, Daniel sat in his kitchen, half-dressed, eyes fixed on his silent phone. The morning news flickered, his own name scrolling under the headline, Officer in Chess Champion Arrest Faces Investigation. He muted the volume but couldn't escape the words echoing in his head. Racist cop, profiling, abuse of power. His wife stood in the doorway, arms folded. Rick, they called from the union. They want you to keep quiet. No interviews. Daniels didn't look up. They already hung me out to dry. Then maybe think about why. He turned, voice low and defensive. You think I meant for this to happen? She hesitated, then said, I think you stopped seeing people a long time ago. That silence cut deeper than any accusation. Back at the legal office, Malik opened his laptop. Dozens of unread messages flooded the screen. Journalists, chess clubs, sponsors, strangers. One subject line caught his eye. We stand with you, World Chess Federation. He opened it. A formal statement glowed back at him. The Federation expresses solidarity with Malik Adi. We condemn the racial profiling incident and reaffirm our commitment to equality in sport and society. He exhaled. For the first time in days, something inside him steadied. Grant studied him. You've got a tournament tomorrow, right? Malik nodded. The Midwest Open. It's minor, but the cameras will be there. Play, Grant said simply. Not for them, for you. Show them what discipline looks like under pressure. That's how you win this. Malik's lips twitched into the faintest smile. Endgame strategy. Night fell over Chicago again, but Malik's apartment glowed with quiet focus. The chessboard sat in front of him, pieces perfectly aligned. His mother watched from the doorway, her expression mixed with worry and pride. You're really going to compete after all this? Yes. Are you sure you can concentrate? Malik's eyes didn't leave the board. Concentration's all I have left. He moved a pawn forward, then another. In his mind, the board became memory, each square a decision, each piece a consequence. The rook, his lawyer, stable but limited. The bishop, his mother, moving diagonally through every barrier. The knight himself, unpredictable, leaping through traps. And the king's survival itself, cornered, cautious, calculating. Every move was survival. Every silence was defense. He whispered, almost prayerfully, controlled the center. Never react out of fear. His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. Your father would have said the same. Malik nodded slowly. At the precinct, Daniels met with his union rep in a side office. Papers were spread across the table. Grievance forms, appeal drafts, talking points. The rep spoke briskly. We'll frame it as a procedural misunderstanding. You acted under stress, responded to an ambiguous description. Play contrite, not guilty. Daniels rubbed his temples. And what about the kid? Don't mention him. You humanize him. You lose your base. Daniels' eyes darkened. My base. The rep shrugged. People who still trust the badge. For the first time, Daniels saw the machinery of the system laid bare, gears turning, greased by fear and denial. He wasn't being defended. He was being managed. When the meeting ended, he didn't sign the statement. He just stared at his reflection in the black screen of the monitor. An officer stripped of certainty. Morning came, sharp and cold. The tournament hall buzzed with cameras, whispers, and the faint click of clocks. Malik sat at the center table, suit pressed, posture perfect, The flashbulbs were constant. But his gaze stayed fixed on the board. His opponent, a grandmaster from Russia, extended a hand. "You okay to play, my friend?" Malik nodded once. "Always." The match began. The pieces moved with rhythm, steady, measured, inevitable. In his mind, the board wasn't just wood and squares, it was the world, chaos, seeking order, cruelty hiding behind logic, survival disguised as strategy. By the 43rd move, Malik saw the trap. His opponent's queen was overextended. A single shift, a quiet sacrifice, and checkmate unfolded like prophecy. Applause erupted. Cameras flashed. Malik leaned back, heartbeat steady, breath shallow. The victory felt different, not triumph, but reclamation. He shook hands, stood, and faced the press quietly gathering. "Malik, how does it feel to win after everything?" He paused. "It's not about winning. It's about playing the game right, even when the rules are bent against you." Silence followed. Then a wave of applause that felt like vindication. Somewhere, in a dim apartment, Daniels watched on television, the boy's face clear, calm, unbroken. And for the first time, Daniels didn't feel hatred, he felt recognition. The pieces were still moving. The first crack in the department's wall came on a Monday morning. An anonymous email landed in a journalist's inbox, timestamp 2:13 a.m. Subject line, bodycam files, unedited. Attached were 2 gigabytes of raw footage, the full recording from Daniel's chest camera. By noon, the video was online. The world watched in real time as the false narrative collapsed. Daniel's tone, his words, "You people always have a story," uncut, unfiltered, broadcast to millions. The footage wasn't just evidence, it was exposure. Inside the precinct, silence suffocated the corridors. Daniels walked in through the back entrance, avoiding the cameras camped by the main doors. The moment he reached his desk, the room seemed to shift. Voices fell, eyes averted. Russo approached quietly. "Rick, it's everywhere. I know. You need to call your rep." Daniels sank into his chair. "For what? The damage is done." He opened his locker. Inside, the badge sat on the shelf. Heavy, hollow, the symbol that once meant order now mocked him with its weight. He'd told himself he was following procedure. He'd told himself instinct wasn't bias. But watching himself, his own voice, his own hand forcing a terrified boy against the hood of a car, stripped every excuse bare. For the first time, he saw himself as others did, and he hated what he saw. Across the city, Malik's phone buzzed nonstop. Messages poured in. Journalists, activists, strangers, fellow players from across continents. His mother handed him the remote. "It's on every channel." On the screen, the anchor's voice was solemn. "Newly released footage contradicts official police statements regarding the arrest of chess prodigy Malik Adab." The video played in full. No cuts, no editing. Malik didn't move. His mother's hand tightened around his when the clip ended. The reporter continued. "The department faces mounting pressure to suspend Officer Richard Daniels pending criminal investigation. Protests are spreading nationwide." Grant called seconds later. "Malik, this changes everything. Civil rights attorneys are already drafting action. The DOJ might get involved." Malik's voice was flat. "I don't want revenge." "This isn't revenge," Grant said. "It's accountability." Malik turned off the TV. "Accountability doesn't fix what happened." "No," Grant said softly, "but it keeps it from happening again." That night, the city breathed in outrage. Crowds filled the streets, holding candles and signs that read "Truth needs no permission and justice is not optional." Drone cameras captured the sea of light moving through downtown. On social media, the world responded. Chess players posting solidarity messages under the tag #CheckmateInjustice. A video from an 8-year-old girl went viral. She stood at a crown of paper on her head, saying, "If Malik can be brave, I can too." Malik watched the clip quietly, chest tightening. People shouldn't need to be brave just to exist. His mother placed her hand on his shoulder. "That's why they need you visible, not silent." He nodded slowly. Meanwhile, Daniels was summoned to headquarters. The air was thick with tension. Reporters shouted questions from the sidewalk as he entered the building, escorted by 2 officers. In the briefing room, Chief Harper didn't look up from the stack of papers before him. "Richard," he said, voice weary, "you're being placed on unpaid suspension pending full investigation." Daniels nodded. "I understand. The footage leaves us no defense. Internal Affairs has already referred it to the state's attorney. There will be a hearing." Daniels met his gaze. I made a mistake. Harper's eyes hardened. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. The words hit harder than the suspension notice sliding across the table. As Daniels turned to leave, Harper added quietly, you could have stopped the moment he said his name. Daniels paused at the door, jaw clenched. I know. That same evening, Malik received an invitation from a late-night news program, a live broadcast. He hesitated. I don't want to relive it on camera, Grant said. Then don't. Just tell the truth. At the studio, bright lights burned against his skin. The host leaned forward. Malik, the world saw what happened. How does it feel now that justice seems closer? Malik thought for a moment, voice steady but distant. Justice isn't a feeling, it's a correction. But you can't correct what people refuse to see. The host nodded, visibly moved. And Officer Daniels, Malik's gaze lowered. He lost something too, but what he lost was what he chose to become. The audience was silent, cameras held on his face, young, composed, unbroken. When the broadcast ended, Malik exhaled slowly, as if letting go of a weight he'd been carrying for weeks. Outside the studio, protesters cheered. He didn't smile, but his eyes lifted toward the skyline. For the first time, the city didn't feel hostile. It felt awake. The protests had begun to fade, but the echo remained. It lived in the walls of classrooms, whispered through community centers, appeared on billboards with Malik's face beside the words, "Think before you judge." 3 weeks after the footage went viral, a federal inquiry into police conduct was officially opened. The department's statement was dry, bureaucratic, reviewing protocols and retraining officers to better serve diverse communities. To Malik, it sounded like translation for damage control. He sat in his bedroom, laptop open, a chessboard beside him. The pieces were mid-game, frozen in a stalemate he hadn't resolved for days. His mother stood at the doorway. You're going to miss practice again. He looked up. Coach said I could take a break. You've been taking a break since the world changed, she said quietly. Malik's fingers traced the white knight. It didn't change, Mom. It just looked at itself. She came closer, sat beside him. And what about you? What are you looking at? Malik hesitated. I thought I wanted justice, but it doesn't feel finished because it never will, she said. Justice isn't a match you win. It's a move you make every day. He closed the laptop and looked at the chessboard. Then I'd better keep playing. Downtown, a different silence. Daniels stood in line outside the courthouse. Cameras flashed. Reporters called his name. But the usual armor of arrogance was gone. The hearing wasn't public, but the verdict would be. Inside, the state's attorney outlined the findings. Racial profiling, falsified report, violation of civil rights. Daniels' defense argued procedural confusion, lack of malice. But the footage had spoken for itself. When the gavel fell, it sounded nothing like closure, just inevitability. Daniels was sentenced to 1 year's probation, mandatory community service, and permanent dismissal from the force. The department called it accountability. The streets called it a beginning. He left the courthouse without speaking. Outside, protesters stood quietly, no shouting, no signs, just watching. As he passed them, one held up a phone showing a paused image. Malik's face from the interview, eyes calm, unbroken. Daniels couldn't look at it. Later that night, Malik was invited to play at a charity exhibition, Chess for Change, organized by a foundation he didn't even know existed until last week. He almost declined, but Grant convinced him. This isn't about the past, Grant said. It's about what comes after it. The venue was small but crowded. Kids, parents, journalists, players from different states. The lights were soft. The hum of quiet conversation filled the air as Malik entered. Applause rippled through the room. He nodded awkwardly, sat at the center board. Across from him, a young girl smiled nervously. You're him, she whispered. He smiled faintly. You're you. That's more important. The match began, simple moves at first, then sharper exchanges. Malik felt the rhythm returning, the clarity of strategy replacing the noise of the past weeks. By the time the girl whispered, "Checkmate," he smiled for the first time in months. The crowd applauded again, but this time it wasn't for tragedy or defiance, it was for the game. Later, after everyone left, Malik stood by the window, the city glowing outside. Grant joined him. You looked alive again out there, Grant said. I was, Malik replied. For a few moves, it was just chess again. Grant handed him an envelope embossed with an international seal. They want you in Geneva next month. The World Junior Invitational, full sponsorship. Malik stared at the letter. then shook his head. After everything, they'll still look at me like the kid from the video. Grant smiled. Then you show them who that kid really is. Malik exhaled slowly. It's not about proving anything anymore. It's about being seen for what's true. That's enough, Grant said. 2 days later, Malik returned to the park, the same place where everything began. The car was gone, the air quieter. He sat on the same bench, watching kids play pickup basketball nearby. The same sound, different day. From the distance, an older man approached, gray uniform, city maintenance badge. Daniels. Malik tensed. Daniels stopped a few feet away, holding a trash bag. His voice was low. Didn't expect to see you here. I could say the same. Daniels nodded slowly. Court assigned me to park cleanup. Fitting, I guess. Silence stretched. You don't owe me anything, Daniels said, but I needed to say I'm sorry. Malik looked at him, unreadable. You didn't see me that day. You saw what you were taught to see. Daniels' jaw tightened. I know. Then unlearn it. Daniels nodded again, eyes lowered. That's what I'm trying to do. He turned and walked off, collecting litter along the way. Malik watched him go, not with forgiveness, but with finality. He pulled out his phone, opened the invitation letter again, and stared at the words, World Junior Chess, Invitational-Geneva. The reflection of the chess piece charm, hanging from his bag, caught the light. For the first time, he didn't feel like the kid who'd been arrested. He felt like the one who'd survived it, and changed something in the process. As the sun set behind the skyline, Malik whispered, almost to himself, checkmate. The word wasn't triumph, it was closure. The airport was a blur of glass and light. Cameras flashed as Malik moved through the terminal, not as a suspect this time, but as a name people recognized for something entirely different, the chess prodigy who changed a city. He'd memorized that headline, though he hated how it tried to turn pain into inspiration. At the gate, he clutched his passport, pages still crisp, name freshly printed. His mother adjusted his collar. I still don't like the idea of you flying alone. I'll be fine. You said that the day you left for practice, she said softly, and look how that ended. Malik met her eyes. That day's over. I'm not running from it anymore. Her hand lingered on his cheek. Then go remind them who you are. He nodded once, turned toward the boarding line. Cameras caught his image again. The calm expression, the quiet defiance. For every person who had doubted him, there were now thousands watching him move forward. Geneva greeted him with snow, thin flakes drifting across cobbled streets. The tournament hall stood beside the river, tall windows glowing gold from within. Inside, the world's best young players gathered. India, Russia, China, the US, each face focused, each move calculated. When Malik entered, a hush followed, not silence. Awareness. His name had traveled further than his rating ever had. At the registration desk, the coordinator smiled politely. Mr. Adebayo, we are honored you could join us. Malik nodded, signing his name. I'm just here to play, of course, she said, though her tone carried the weight of recognition. The boy from the video. He moved toward his table, each step measured, deliberate. Across from him sat his first opponent, a tall boy from Moscow with a stiff uniform jacket and sharp, pale eyes. I saw your video, the boy said flatly. Malik's hand paused over the board. Everyone did. You shouldn't have been treated that way. Malik looked up, meeting his gaze. Then don't play like you believe it. The boy's lips twitched, half a smirk, half respect. The clock started. The game stretched for hours. Knights fell, bishops cornered. Pawns advanced one square at a time. The rhythm was mechanical, but the air pulsed with tension. With each move, Malik felt something shed the headlines. The fear, the whispers. The world outside the board faded, leaving only patterns, precision, and truth. 37 moves later, the Russian tipped his king. Checkmate, Malik said quietly. Applause erupted. Flashes flickered. Reporters shouted from the sidelines. Malik, how does it feel to win after everything you've been through? He didn't look up. It feels like chess. By the final day of the tournament, Malik was undefeated. The hall filled beyond capacity, journalists, fans, even diplomats seated in the back row. The final match was broadcast live. His opponent, a grandmaster in training from France, older by 3 years, known for his aggression on the board. The cameras zoomed in. Ready? The referee asked. Malik nodded. The first move was white pawn to e4. Declaration. As the match unfolded, commentary whispered through earpieces and live streams. He's playing defensively. No, wait. He's setting up the Sicilian trap. At move 48, Malik saw the pattern forming. His opponent didn't. A single rook shift, precise as breath. The board froze. Checkmate. Silence. Then applause like thunder. Reporters surged forward. Microphones rose. What message do you have for those who doubted you? Malik straightened. Doubt doesn't define anyone. Actions do. And to the officer, someone shouted. He paused. He made his move. I made mine. The crowd roared again, but beneath the noise, Malik felt something quieter. Not victory, but balance. Weeks later, he returned home. The city had changed subtly. Murals of unity, where broken glass once was. Community programs started in his name. Chessboards appearing in schools. At one mural, a quote beneath his painted face read, "Silence isn't peace. Understanding is." He didn't remember saying it, but maybe that was the point. His story was no longer just his. Grant met him at the airport, smiled, tired but proud. You made the front page again. Malik smirked, for the right reasons this time. They drove past the old precinct. The windows were dark, half the staff replaced. New signs reading, Community Accountability Division, Poetic Justice. Grant murmured. Malik stared ahead. No, just overdue correction. At home, his mother had set up the chessboard again. Thought you might want to play one that's not on camera, she said. Malik sat, the pieces familiar in his hands. She moved first, as they played. Evening light poured through the curtains. Halfway through the match, she looked up. Do you ever think about him? The officer. Malik hesitated. Sometimes. What do you think? That people can unlearn. Slowly, she nodded. That's faith. He smiled faintly. That's work. She moved her queen. Check, he countered, with a knight. Checkmate. She laughed quietly. You don't even gloat anymore. Because it's not about winning, he said. It's about not losing yourself. Outside, the neighborhood glowed in the sunset. Kids played on sidewalks, laughter echoing off brick walls. Malik stood at the window, chess piece in his hand, the same white king from the day of his arrest. He placed it back on the board gently. Tomorrow, he'd speak at a school. Next month, a conference. But tonight, there was only stillness, and the quiet understanding that survival wasn't the end of the story. It was the move that made every next one possible. He turned off the light. The board stayed, visible in the huff. The pieces arranged, mid-game, ready. Checkmate.